Coach, I guess fresh off the practice field, if maybe we can just do a quick little recap of day one of practice, then we'll go right into questions from our media contingent.
Yeah, more than anything, just felt great to get on the practice field. Just talking to the team right now as we broke it down, you could see, especially at the end, guys had great energy, but that moment happened where you realize you're just present, and just the thing that I think we've missed for so long, where you just get lost playing the game. And I think there was a real sense that today was not promised to us, and just a real appreciation for all of us to be out there and have the opportunity to sort of immerse ourselves in this game.
Awesome. Coach, we'll start with David Ferrones of the South Florida Sun Sentinel. David, if you had a question for Coach Diaz.
Sure. Thanks, Cam. Hi, Manny. Wanted to ask just a general recruiting question, since we haven't asked you about it throughout this whole pandemic, and obviously you guys have had a lot of success in that area. First, is there something to the idea that maybe local prospects are really valuing staying at home during this whole pandemic? And also, is there a certain approach that you guys have taken to that, during this whole dead period where you don't have visits and all that you feel has really benefited the team in that area?
I'm sure there's some factor in the pandemic and, the loss of the fact that it's been basically a dead period since March, but it's hard to say exactly what that percentage would be on the reasoning. I mean, obviously, most of the credit goes to our staff. We have a staff of highly energetic people that I think just, the players are really gravitating towards. Some of these recruits we've been recruiting now for multiple years, and I think you see those relationships are starting, and then just, some of the benefit of our recruiting staff, David Cooney, Edwin Pata, DeMarcus Van Dyke, those guys with Andy Vaughn are just, I think it's, it's hard to say it's just this thing, but certainly all those things together are certainly helping us out.
Awesome. Coach, we'll go next to Christopher Stock from Inside the U. Chris, if you have a question for Coach Diaz.
Yeah, Coach, I was curious, a little housekeeping with the offensive line. Essentially how Jared Williams has transitioned, and where did you have him, left or right tackle? And then Navon Donaldson, just kind of looking back on his decision. And Isaiah Walker, if there's any update and maybe an idea when you might hear something about his waiver. Thank you.
Okay, so Jared played right tackle today. Navon, I think the issue with Navon was just because of his rehab. He wasn't going to be ready to go in August anyway. So with the redshirt rule, where you still had an idea where you can play 4 games, and there's been talk of that rule going up to 6 this year because of the unusualness of 2020. That there's a way we could still, our mentality was he's not going to not play this year, but just you can get him ready and use him, when the calendar allows. And then with Isaiah, the waiver doesn't really affect anything in terms of, that's something you don't have to have the answer to that until September 11th. So all the paperwork and all that, we're going through all that right now, and when we hear, we'll hear.
Manny, just to follow up, impressions of Jared Williams, just your impressions, what you've seen from him, your thoughts on him as a player.
Well, certainly he stands out just through his size, and I mean he has tremendous length. So he's hard to miss. Now obviously just today was our first time, and we were just in helmets. So we'll learn more when the pads come on Sunday, I suppose. But just length. You got to take an extra step to get around him, because he's got such great reach. So I think that definitely provides value.
Awesome. Coach, we're going to go to Susan Miller-Degnan of the Miami Herald. Susan, if you have a question for Coach Diaz.
Hey, Coach Diaz. Did anyone opt out since we last spoke with you?
Call's not over yet, Susan, so we'll see. No, Susan, no one's opted out.
Have you had discussions with anybody else, other than Greg Rousseau about possibly opting out, and that maybe someone else still might make that decision, as far as you know?
No, I mean, no, I don't. Look, I mean, it's 2020 and everything is fluid in this year. But we've talked with all of our guys. Not just the ones that are in Greg's situation, just all of our players. And like I said, telling to my coaches today, I mean, we need to carry on this conversation every day, not just in terms of just the opting out, but just making sure we understand where their hearts are.
And I just want one other follow about how important was it, how valuable was it that Zach McLeod, returned this year, and how strange was it without, Shaq and Pinckney there?
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit peculiar, but I know Zach provides great value for not just our defense but our football team. It helps when your best players are also your best people, and I think Zach's a guy that's got the respect of everybody in our locker room. So, he's one that you want the young ones to emulate. How do I work? How do I, what do I do in the weight room? How do I practice? What should my habits be? Because he's a great one for the young ones to learn from.
Coach, with Manny Navarro from The Athletic. Manny, if you have a question for Coach Diaz.
Hey, Manny, how you doing?
Good, man.
So you guys, I remember you mentioned in the spring how you guys were sort of game planning ahead already because you had all that free time. And I was wondering, once Clemson and some of these other new opponents got on the schedule, were you able to do any of that, or were you guys just more focused on what was going on the field already at that point? Have you started?
With Clemson, for example, we had actually already game planned for them.
Okay.
Because I forget what week it was, it all runs together. But when there had started to become some whispers that obviously we'd go to a conference only scheduled sometime in the summer. So when that happened, we started looking at some different opponents. We'd watch Clemson, we'd watch Notre Dame. We had some, of course, familiarity with Louisville because of playing them a year ago, but our offensive staff wasn't here. So we had already taken some steps to do all that.
And I guess just as a quick follow, did you find it sort of helpful at all to get this kind of a head start that far ahead, or do you think in the end you're going to just be paying attention once the season starts to what's happening there?
Well, both. I mean, it's always nice to have the teams you don't play year in and year out. It's always nice to have a little bit of familiarity so that when you get to that week, and obviously you break down what they're doing in that given year, you can say, oh, they're very similar to a year ago. Oh, they've kind of morphed into this. They're running this play more often. So you can at least tell the story chronologically of where they were and where they are now.
Thank you.
Coach, we'll go to Matt Shodell at Canesport. Matt, do you have a question for Coach Diaz?
Sure do. Hey, Coach, how you doing? So wanted to ask you, I guess you guys normally have a better sense for how to start the fall off depth chart wise, whether it's a long series of off-season conditioning and stuff they do in the weight room or coming off spring ball. You didn't really have a normal sense of that. So can you give us a sense for how you determined the first team depth chart, second team depth chart that you lined up with today?
Yeah, I mean, you still have some feedback in the weight room in terms of how the guys did in the summer here over the last few weeks. And even just in the walkthroughs, just, you're not going full speed, but you definitely have some assignments and you can find out who knows what they're doing and who doesn't know what they're doing. But we went into this camp not thinking we have much of a depth chart at all. We want this to be a real, great competition. Guys that can move up and move down, daily, and no one that feels very comfortable about their place on our football team.
Awesome. Coach, we have David Lake from 24/7 Sports. David, if you have a question for Coach Diaz.
Yeah, Coach, wanted to ask you about Ed Reed, just, with the chief of staff duties. Obviously, he started during a weird time this offseason. Just wanted to ask you, how involved has he been able to be during this time? And, can you highlight how maybe he's made an impact if he has been involved, et cetera?
Well, where he's been invaluable has been in recruiting. Obviously when we hired him, I don't think, we weren't aware that we'd go into a shelter in place for as long as we did, but because we all became recruiters on the phone, it's not even just the name Ed Reed when he talks to these young men. It's who he is and his personality, and it's just a great resource for them. And it would be hard to mention our progress in recruiting without giving Ed some credit as well. So.
Coach, we've got a few more. Tom D'Angelo from the Palm Beach Post. Tom, if you had a question for Coach Diaz.
Hey, if I get two in quick, hey, Manny. First of all, you mentioned before, today wasn't given for everything we've gone through. So, in light of that, what did you see? I don't know, was it relief? Was it joy? Was it just to get out there? Maybe a lot of these guys never expected this day to come. So kind of a little bit more on how they were reacted to getting onto a field and maybe, to the start of.
Well, how many times, in all of our aspects of all of our lives that we said, things are just not normal anymore, right? And sort of finally have some sort of normalcy, where oh, this is familiar. And I mean, there were weird things that, obviously standing further apart and, just different little nuances of practice with social distancing, but ball is still ball. And I just think the idea of just, oh man, this feels like what I'm used to. And there have been so few things in this calendar year that you've been able to say that. So I think that was the general sense that everyone had.
And secondly, if I could, Susan mentioned the opt-outs. Have you seen this? There's a lot more of those today, and it's for different reasons. It's not just for guys who think they're going to go into the NFL. It's just for all kinds of reasons, family reasons and all. What did you just see that generally in seeing all that? Did you expect that as we were getting closer from around the country? Do you think it's going to, how much do you think it might impact the game if we have a season?
It's, until the dust has settled, Tom, it's so hard to say. You've got, you got 130 teams, roughly 100 kids on every team. That's so many different stories. So many different backgrounds, so many different family situations. I think we'll see. I guess the NFL had 68 or so.
Yeah.
7. We'll see when we get there. It's just different. And maybe I don't know if some kids that opted out, not the ones that, of course, going pro. Some kids, if we're playing and life is good in October, do they want to come back? It's very complicated. That's been the hardest part. I remember we said this on a call back in April. Our numbers are a picture from 2 weeks ago, and it's so hard to predict where we're at 2 weeks from now. If you look at our positivity rate in Dade County and where it's gone in the last 14 days, if we can do that again in the next 14 days, we're going to be in the single digits for the first time in since we came out of shelter in place. So again, it's just it's harsh on these kids to try to make decisions for, what will the world look like on September 12th? I mean, it's impossible to say. And there's been a lot of, it could be a lot worse, but it could be a lot better as well, just be given what the numbers are doing. So just tough to make. The one thing we've learned in 2020, it's hard to make a decision for next month, let alone the next season. Tough to piece all that together.
Coach, is the last one. David Wilson from the Miami Herald. David, question for Coach Diaz.
Hey, Manny, just kind of following up on the Greg Rousseau decision from yesterday. It seems like the overwhelming reaction from the team has been positive. I'm curious what you've seen from, I guess, specifically the defensive end groups. Obviously, Quincy and Jalen and Jafari knew they were going to be playing a lot this year, but now obviously their role is going to be expanded. What have you seen from them in the last 24 hours?
Well, I don't know anyone on the planet that doesn't like Greg Rousseau. I mean, you can't not like the kid. So I think everybody's really happy for him. They're happy for their brothers, but yeah, I mean, it definitely, those guys were already highly motivated for the season, but now they know that their role, really steps up. And so I think all those guys, I think our entire defensive line room is energized and very excited about, about the new state of affairs.
Awesome. Coach, thank you for taking a few minutes with us tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Cam. Just before I go, I just got this. I want to tell everybody that the Marlins are up 4-1 on the Mets. Okay. See you guys.